Hello and good afternoon to the final session of the 2021 United Nations Big Data Forum. Over the past 2 days and 12 sessions, we have looked at data science, big data, robotics, artificial intelligence across many different sectors with many different stakeholders and with many different industries. Now, as we close out the forum, we have a pleasure of having a very important session which is titled on data science, education, research, and industrial applications in Trinidad and Tobago. We would like to thank our participants who are here. We have an excellent keynote speaker and panel that will be here with us. I will quickly introduce all of the participants before handing the floor over to our keynote speaker, Professor Patrick Hosein. Professor Patrick Hosein is a University of West Indies professor, the founder of TTLAB, Lab, and the CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago Network Information Center. He has attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he obtained 5 degrees, including a PhD in electrical engineering and computer science. Throughout his career, he has worked at Bose Corporation, Bell Laboratories, AT&T Laboratories, Ericsson, and Huawei. He has published extensively with over 150 refereed journal and conference publications and holds 41 granted patents in the areas of telecommunications and wireless technologies. He was nominated for the Ericsson Inventor of the Year Award in 2004, was the Huawei US Wireless Research Employee of the Year for 2007, and is a 2015 Anthony Sabga Caribbean Laureate for Science and Technology. He is presently the administrative and technical contact for the Trinidad and Tobago top-level domain, CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago Network Information Center, and a professor of computer science at the University of West Indies. His present areas of research include applied data science, operations research, and performance and pricing optimization for cellular networks. And on a personal note, I would also like to thank Professor Hosein, who has been present in every single session so far during the Big Data Forum. His support to this process and to this endeavor that we are undertaking is absolutely invaluable, and it is something that we value very highly. He will be joined today after his presentation by Ms. Ebony De Leon, the Manager of Data and Business Analytics, Office of the Group Vice President at Insurance Operations, Guardian Group. She has been with Guardian Group for 2 years. Over that period, she has built a highly skilled team of data scientists and data and business analysts who are developing innovative solutions and data-driven capabilities for business units across the Caribbean. Prior to this, she managed the development of analytic solutions for Henry Schein in New York. She attained an MBA and an MS in project management from George Washington University in 2015. Her transition to the analytics space was preceded by 6 years in actuarial retirement consulting for Willis Towers Watson in Washington, D.C. Beyond her work explorations, she enjoys traveling the world and staying active through a mix of CrossFit and hiking. Last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Nigel Henry from CIBC, First Caribbean International Bank, where he leads a team of data scientists. In his role, he is responsible for converting the bank's vast amounts of financial and customer data into actionable insights. Before this, he was the founder and principal consultant of Solution by Simulation, a consulting firm that applies analytics in retail, public opinion, the nonprofit sector, and social science research. His professorial career in data science first took off when he was recruited by the Obama for America campaign for the role of head analytics for the targeted states of Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida, all of which went red to blue in 2008. He holds degrees from Yale University and the George Washington University. Certainly, I think it is very rare to have this amount of brain power in one place. Just reading through your bios sort of taken 10 minutes. So that just says what a great privilege and pleasure it is for us to welcome you here today. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Professor Hosein, but I would just like to remind all the participants that throughout the session, they can post any questions they have based on the professor's presentation or on the panel discussion in the Q&A function at the bottom of their screen. So please use that to post any questions that you have. Without further ado, Professor Hosein, the floor is yours.
Thanks for that introduction, Sudan. And thanks for the invitation to present at this forum, Big Data Forum. I think it's important for Trinidad to really play a leading role in the region, in this area. So today what I'm going to do is I'm not going to talk about what can be done, what should be done, what others are doing. I'm going to talk about what we are doing locally. So it's along the line of what Vijay talked about yesterday, about what he's actually doing at Vertana, and the fact that he's using local resources to do work for companies worldwide. So I'll focus a little bit on data science education, research, and I'll talk about some of the internships and some of the collaborations we have with local companies. All right, so data science, as I mentioned, education, then research. And what I want to do is at the end, I'm going to go over some of our publications, because I want to highlight certain things about each of them that illustrates the benefit of the type of work or the model we use. You know, we don't have the resources that these big tech companies have. We don't have the data that some of these other companies have. So we have to work within what is available to us. And that means collaborative with industry. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that part of it. So in terms of data science education at UE, 4 years ago, we started a MSc in data science. There was some resistance to it, but we got it off the ground. It started off, with relatively small cohorts, 5, and then 5. But then all of a sudden it increased to 19 last year, and this year was 21. So I think locally, companies and students are beginning to appreciate the value of data science, and hopefully this continues to grow. Now, because of COVID and other factors, some of the other master's programs are actually declining because of low registrations, but in data science, it's going up. We also propose a PhD in data science, and the reason for this is we want to accommodate applicants from more disciplines than just computer science. So hopefully this gets off the ground, and then we could have PhDs from people from economics, engineering, etc., doing data science. And then, well, there's also the informal education, which is important because at UE, we do not have the resources to cover all the areas of AI that would be needed by a data scientist. And so we rely on online courses in specialized areas. And this is especially important when we have to do research in an area that we haven't trained that student in. In terms of research, we do, of course, we do theoretical research because PhD students have to do, come up with novel ideas, etc., and publish. So the theoretical research is done mostly by the PhD students, and these are for journal publications. The MSc students who typically have, 3 to 4 months to put together their thesis, focus more on applied research. And we try to solve local industrial problems. Now, these students do not, it's not a requirement to publish their research. But of course, if you work under my supervision, I ensure that you produce something that is publishable. We also do research required by grants, so I'll talk briefly later on about our grants we have from National Geographic Society, for instance. And And then we get requests from NGOs. And so we're also interested in doing research that has social relevance. Other TTLAB members, publish because they want to go to advance their career, whether within their job or to grad school. And some people actually just want to do research for fun. So what is TTLAB? TTLAB is actually an ad hoc group of researchers. It's not really a formal entity. And it was formed because what I found is that we had national scholars who graduated either at UE or abroad, and they came back and they were lost. They couldn't continue their research. They ended up doing rather trivial tasks. And so I wanted to provide an environment where they could continue research and publish. It includes students, also associate professionals who are those who are on national scholarships. We have diaspora, employees from local companies, etc. It's multidisciplinary, and we have people at various education levels. So students, second year undergrad students do research with us, all the way up to people who have graduated with their PhDs, but would like to do some research in data science. As I mentioned, our focus is really on solving real world local problems. But what we want to do is we want to show it's of a sufficiently high quality that it could be published. And then, of course, we want to, especially when we work for a company, we like to show proof of concept and quantify the benefit in some way. Typically, we have about 25 active researchers, and then we also have alumni who continue working with us. These are people who have gone on to do other things. But in addition to these 25, we also have other students who are doing their thesis, but not within our group. So this is a kind of model of how we operate. We have students at various education levels, from engineering, mechanical, chemical, electrical. We have computer science students, data science students from the MSc program, students in mathematics and statistics, actuarial science. Recently we also got added somebody from physics. She's interested in using quantum computing for machine learning. So all these people get tossed into TT Lab, and under my supervision, they do research on their own. Maybe I'll work with them on identifying a problem to solve. Some of them go off and do internships at companies, and they may actually do multiple internships. They go out, they come back in. Some of them get absorbed into industry, as Ebony would mention. So they get full-time offers and they stay at the company. In terms of what industries they end up in, these are just some of the examples of where people have ended up. Some have gone on to teach at universities, some at grad school doing their MSc or PhDs, either at UB or abroad. Some are in insurance, some in banking, telecoms, electrical power, health, energy, etc. So it's interesting that we have a wide range of disciplines coming in, and a wide range of careers going out, which is a bit of a tough on my end, because when you apply data science to each of these domains, you have to learn the terminology, you have to learn various things about it to be able to understand the problems being solved. And so I've had to learn about insurance and banking. Luckily, I have a background in telecom, so I was able to ramp up quickly there. The internship model. So of course, data science requires data, these tend to, at least locally, we tend to get these from companies through internships, and of course we sign an NDA. Students is provided a monthly stipend and works part-time, mostly remotely. The reason why it's important that they get a stipend is that I like them to focus on their research, as opposed to having to have a side job as well to get some income. And it's part-time because some of them actually have to do their academic research in addition to the industry research. Student is supervised by myself together with a company employee. Of course, the problem which is identified together with the company must be of significant value to the company, and the solution should be sufficiently novel to be published. So we make it clear that we want to publish as well. And of course, we don't disclose any proprietary information. We do it in such a way that we we publish the results and the model, etc. Typically, we try to also quantify the benefit of whatever solution we have, either through analysis or a prototype or some sort of a proof of concept. In terms of grants, we do have a few grants. Now, I will be honest, grants take up quite a bit of time because of all the paperwork, which I hate. And so we typically would only apply for grants if one or more of my students decide to follow through with all the paperwork. So for instance, we recently had a grant from CIBC to do AI in finance. And we had 5 data scientists assigned to that. We are presently working on a National Geographic Society grant, and that also includes Microsoft. They provide Azure resources to us. This was done jointly with the Cropper Foundation. So we also try to collaborate with local NGOs. And so this grant is for application of AI to precision agriculture. And there we have another 5 data scientists. We have grants from hardware grants from like NVIDIA, because we need processing resources in some cases. And so they recently provided us with a few GPUs, which are still stuck in customs. So that's another difficult thing. In terms of the National Geographic Society grant, we purchased a drone, and that took us forever to get through customs and get approved, etc. TGNIC, which is a company, also sponsors attendance to conferences, etc. All right, so I better speed up because of time. So what I wanted to do is quickly go over, some of our publications, because it shows you what type of work we do. We could talk about, we collaborate with industry, we do ABC, etc. But I like to give solid examples of how this is done. So I'll go through quickly these some of these examples. So the first one is on cybersecurity. So this is the reason I brought this one up is because, and all these are from this year, all right? These are publications from 2021. The Ministry of National Security actually came to us and asked to collaborate with us, and we proposed this this project to them, a project on using a honeypot to be able to check the characteristics of attackers. And so the intent was to use a government domain, so gov.tt. Unfortunately, people changed within the ministry and that fell apart. So we we decided to continue on our own. Of course, we couldn't use gov.tt anymore. We use edu.tt and org.tt, and the org.tt was used with a honeypot that simulated the energy sector. So we wanted to see how attacks were, the types of attacks to the energy sector. This one, allocation of resources for marketing. This is, some research we did, and the reason I brought it up is because here, in addition to machine learning, we also had to use some nonlinear optimization, and many of our students haven't been exposed to optimization. Optimization is wide. You have, you can take about 5 or 6 courses on optimization. So this is where, we would have to teach things on the side. This is some work being done by one of my students, jointly supervised with Dr. Diyal Singh, who was on a session yesterday. So she's doing her PhD in mathematics, but it's related to data science. And this is an illustration of cross-department collaboration. This is work we did jointly with some people at Korea University. It's actually one of my former students who is now a research professor there. And it's some really interesting work. I wish I could, expand on some of these things, but the reason I brought this up is we actually filed a patent on this as well. But it was filed in South Korea because, it wouldn't be of much use locally as a patent. Overdraft protection. This is based, we conceptualized why we were doing the CIBC grant. So it's a proof of concept, but what we actually showed is it benefits both the bank and consumer. And of course, somebody has to lose out, and that's the third party. And again, I can't get into details, but interesting work here. Soft churn. This applies to when most phones, newer phones have these eSIMs, which support up to 4 providers together with the physical SIM. And so this now gives you the ability to quickly switch between data subscriptions. And so in developing countries, most people use prepaid data subscriptions. So we came up with this approach to optimize that choice of provider. And this can actually be productized. Unfortunately, in Trinidad, we do not have phones, widespread use of eSIMs or phones with eSIM capability. But in places like India, potentially we could do something here. This is a project that was requested by TSTT when we had internships with them. It was actually requested by Mr. Bacchus, who is now Minister of in the Ministry of Digital Transformation. And what they made clear is the fact that what was designed and developed was comparable to off-the-shelf options at a much, much lower cost. This is the work we're doing on National Geographic Society project. What I wanted to highlight here is that we are collecting data using drones, and we are actually doing some labeling. And just this morning, one of the members sent out an email about the cost to us for doing the labeling, because we have to hire some undergrad students to do it for us. But we're going to make this data available as open data. Okay, so this is theoretical research by a PhD computer science student in Zamam, who was on a session yesterday as well. This is an example of collaboration with a US-based company, Cabria. And this was, they were developing jewelry with body sensors, and they wanted to have an improvement on energy efficiency. Deforestation, climate change, etc. So this is work that was actually started by Keanu when he was an undergrad student. And so that's why I wanted to highlight this, so even as a second year undergrad student, you could actually start contributing to the research. This is a novel approach for doing some surveys, because to get quality data through surveys is difficult. You can't ask too many questions, but if you ask too few questions, then there's insufficient information to do any kind of root cause analysis of any problems that come up. This is another CIBC grant project together with Nigel, who is on the panel in marketing. This is a manufacturing project from TYE. They make electrical panels, and it's using machine learning to customize the description of the product being requested. So it's saving them quite a bit of time. This is an example of a computer science thesis using a public data set, but we try to avoid using public data sets. We would like to use our local data instead. This is an example of work done by somebody in the energy sector. He did his MSc in data science. So it illustrates how we could use data to reduce costs in the energy sector as well. This is looking at anomaly detection of these air guns that they use on these ships for probing the seabed. This is some work I personally have been doing based on some other work I did in insurance in industry. So it's really a theoretical formulation of an important problem where you have to trade off personalization and confidence or robustness, but it has practical applications. This is work in the social sector area. So this was actually presented at IEEE International Humanitarian Technology Conference, and on using chatbot technology to educate people on financial decisions. This is an example again from TSTT on using data to improve telecommunications operations, fraud detection in this case. This is on using, again, data to improve product recommendations. And again, these were all developed within TSTT and being used. So to conclude, we need to develop and keep our data scientists, but have them solve real problems. The present efforts through TTLAB and other people are limited, but could be scaled up to increase the pipeline of data scientists being produced. And just telling you about a monthly seminar, Mondays at 7, first Monday of every month at 7 p.m. Just go to lab.tt/Zoom to get the Zoom information. And that is it. Took a little bit more time than I should, but yeah.
Absolutely no problem, Professor Hosein. One of the big benefits of being the last session of the forum is that not only do we get to close on our terms, but we also have unlimited time to go overboard. So as long as the questions keep flowing and you guys have the time, I'm more than happy to keep facilitating.
Great.
Before I go on to the questions from the audience, and just to remind the participants that you can ask any question at any time using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, I would like to bring in the panel and just ask some questions. But once again, thank you so much for your presentation, and because it really puts in perspective the road ahead for Trinidad and Tobago in ensuring that we develop the frameworks, capacities, and skills to embrace technology and its varied applications. To bring in Ms. De Leon and Mr. Henry, I just wanted to ask, from the perspective of recognition and usability, are industries, sectors, and even the public sector fully embracing the concept of data science and building its use into their everyday processes, capacities, and practices? Or is the approach still one of employing a data scientist as a quick fix solution? Has the local demand for data science and data scientists increased sufficiently to match the interests of persons pursuing careers in data science today? Ms. Leon, can we start with you maybe, and then we'll go to Mr. Henry.
Sure, absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. That's a great question. I think, generally I'd say we're moving in the right direction, but of course, I think that the progress is still slow. I started my career in analytics in the US, and when I was moving back to Trinidad, I was concerned whether I would find, opportunities that allowed me like a fulfilling career in this particular space. Happily, I can say that I have, and I'm now fortunate that I have a fast-growing team of young, very smart data scientists and data analysts, who they're being challenged daily on various types of projects. As Prof was saying, you want to make sure that we're being exposed to real-world examples. I mean, the team works on data that is a lot messier than the set data sets that they work on, in school. So it really does challenge you, but there's a lot of growth that happens, a lot of development that happens, right? I also believe that, data science and analytics is going to be an essential component of future work. And so it's a very, very viable career opportunity to pursue. And one of the things that I also, think is key to mention is that it's important that we start interacting with, not just universities, but high school students and make them aware of this option and start getting them into, the pipeline of students that are interested in this particular field. So, yeah, there are opportunities. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And Mr. Henry?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of good points, a lot of good questions there. First of all, thank you to UNTT for having me on, and it's always a good it's a good opportunity always to partner with Professor Hosein. So I'm always happy to do that. In terms of your question, I think I like Ebony's answer. We are moving in the right direction. Is it that companies are doing it every day? Well, we heard so many projects, dozens of projects from Professor Hosein of good examples of companies who are doing it. But we see that some of these are experimental, some of these are novel. So, exactly as Ebony said, it's something that's increasing. It's something that we have to watch. But it's like anything else we're doing. It's a bumpy road. There are ups and downs. I think I would give my experience coming back to Trinidad after starting a career in the US. And as you would have said in my intro, for a large period of time, I would have offered data analytics as a service, for various companies. So this would be slightly different from what TTLAB Lab is doing, which is providing internships and so on. We would actually be coming in as consultants and charging, and it's not easy. And companies, for a number of reasons, because of infrastructure, because of they want to keep their data internal. These things are difficult to do. So it's a mixed bag, I would say, if I had to summarize where we are right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry. Professor Hosein, anything to add?
Well, yeah, as I said in my presentation, local companies see the need for data scientists, but the problem tends to be they're not sure how to use them, how to formulate the problem, or what problems can be solved with their data. And that's where we have to go in and say, look, this is the data you have, this is what you can do with it, and how you would benefit. Which is why quantifying the benefit of anything we do is so important, because they won't invest in any resources unless they can show some benefit. So yeah, and plus I agree with what Nigel and Ebony said.
Yes, thank you. I see we're having a lot of questions in the chat room, but I just want to go run back one more time to the panelists with questions. The first one is to Ms. De Leon. that, the fifth industrial revolution that is, upon us is going to let us do things that past generations saw as science fiction. In embracing this fifth revolution, we will leave behind many of our, skills, practices, habits, and mindsets. From the perspective of business and industry, how difficult is the challenge of changing mindsets, especially inside corporate boardrooms? Do industry leaders and corporate Trinidad and Tobago identify that there is a lack of enough connected, unified data for data scientists and others to interpret? And that it is not just about the data scientists per se being hired?
Wow, that's a good question. I think from my experience, I think that the C-level executives, they understand the value that technology brings. And I think they recognize the competitive landscape demands the need for, an evolution into the machine learning and AI space. So they're not really your biggest challenge. The greater challenge comes sometimes from getting the rest of the business on board with the change. Human beings are creatures of habit and such. They're not really, excited sometimes to change the way they've been always doing certain things, especially like in the insurance industry, right? However, I think by educating all of the stakeholders, including the end users, you could really help them to understand that this can create solutions and tools that improve and enhance their ability to do their jobs, right? And by showing them the value that this can have, you can get the buy-in that's needed. But as we're all saying here, it takes time to do this. This is not an easy road. It's not a short road. So it's a process by all means. And then I think with regards to the data that you're asking about, for any company pursuing machine learning and AI, there's always a question of whether enough data exists to really drive the analysis. Thought leaders in the space agree that, you don't need to have a perfect data set to start. That perfect data set does not really exist. So there are always going to be challenges to attain high quality, credible data. But start where you are. And as you proceed, you can identify gaps within the data and figure out what can assist in the model development over time, and then work with the business to fill those gaps. Another suggestion is to try to access as much of the data as possible. Sometimes you have really rich data sets, but unfortunately it might be in a manual form. We love paper in Trinidad. And so the data needs to be lifted and put into a database. And I think in some cases, it's really, really worth the effort to have that process done so that you have that data to include in your analysis.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that thorough answer. To quickly just jump back to Mr. Henry, what do you call it? And then we will go to the participants' questions. Mr. Henry, we have seen that job listings for data science and analytics reached 2.7 million in 2020. However, an IDB report points out that Latin America and the Caribbean takes advantage of only about 6% of its digital potential, compared to an average of 12% in Europe and 18% in the United States. As the demand for ICT technologies continues to expand locally, is there a greater need for public-private partnerships for investing in skills that are associated with technological development, and even supporting the existing workforce to transition to new jobs in the ICT sphere? What would be the likely benefits of such partnerships?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I'm glad that we're up to 6%, right? I mean, we have a long way to go, but at least we're somewhere. You asked about the need for public-private partnerships. Absolutely needed. And it goes back to your last question about changing mindsets, right? We have a culture where we all need to work together, and the public sector may not always lead the way, but needs to be involved. And if you think about it, in these industrial countries where you have, the NSF or the NIH, which are these big funding institutions, that's a form of public-private partnership. It may not be the same kind of form that people are thinking about, but it's a form of public assistance. So there's no way, I think, to get around, those PPPs, as you mentioned, to provide the avenue for entrepreneurs or big corporate businesses to be able to move that 6% up. You also asked, sorry, what was the last part of your question? Sorry, after you asked about public-private partnerships. You're muted. Sorry about that.
Apologies, I'm mute. Yeah, that's
okay.
where I start with technology while you guys talk about too much other stuff. What would be the likely benefits of such partnerships?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Well, we don't want to be left behind, right? And as a small island states, there's only so far that we can go with natural resource extraction. We need to move. You talk about the fifth revolution, and we need to move to a knowledge economy. So we need to stay employed. We need to stay relevant. We need to, make use of all the technology. So data science and AI, just like any other technology, it has the potential to level the playing field, but it also has the potential to exacerbate the difference between the rich and the poor. Right. And so what's the benefit? It allows us to essentially to survive. It's an existential need to be able to employ these technologies in the public sector and in the private sector. That's the way I see it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go now to the chat box where we have quite a lot of questions from our audience, and we'll just go through them one by one. The first one is for Professor Hosein. Does the research you discussed in your presentation result in patents? And if yes, can you provide a couple of examples?
Well, yeah, I did provide one example of a patent we filed, but it was filed in South Korea because it was on pricing for wireless services, and we didn't, to be honest, it wouldn't be used locally. We want to do more patent disclosures, but the companies need to change their mindset when it comes to innovative ideas and filing patents, etc. So we will get to that stage, but we first have to get the research up to the level to be able to compete internationally. So you can't file a patent on something that cannot compete internationally. It has to be sufficiently novel, and we are getting there in terms of the research. So I would say within a year, we will start seeing, with some of these collaborations with companies, we will start doing some joint applications for patents. Now that brings in some difficulties, because now it's a discussion between UE and the company on etc. And that tends to be a little bit bureaucratic, but we have to overcome all these things to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. And since I have you there, unmuted. Another question we have is, how do you join TTLAB? Lab? That's what one user wanted to know. Well,
as long as you have an interest and you have a sufficiently strong background, we can't start you off, from primary school, right? So, contact me, and I could discuss with you if you're ready to do research with us, and if not, what you should be doing. So sometimes, students come to me and I say, well, okay, take these online courses. If you do well in them, come back to me and we'll discuss. And it's not only the background, your background is also your interest, because what I try to do is match problems in your area of interest with your expertise, and also attitude. You could have all A's if you don't have the right attitude to do research. I could kind of tell that, and yeah. So yeah, contact me, admin. Well, you have my email address on the slides, but yeah, send me email, and we can have a discussion by WhatsApp on your future. I may not be able to include you in TTLAB Lab at this point in time, but I could give you some advice.
Thank you. I'm sure that will be an appreciated answer. Now, this is for all three of you in many ways, and I think an interesting question. Is there any intersection between data science and social sciences, such as sociology? Who would like to take a first stab at it?
Let me go. So I'm glad that Professor Hosein spoke about the developments at UWI in terms of making the data science program more friendly to people outside of computer science. Because I mean, to be honest, the short answer is absolutely 100% yes. Data science is not it's not an IT thing. To me, data science is a way of thinking and a way of using big data that's produced in essentially every field, particularly the social sciences, economics, psychology, sociology, anthropology. You know, there's tons of data out there, and the question is, how do you use it? So, and if I could just say one more thing, I mean, in my experience, people who come from a background in using data in the real world tend to have that passion that Professor Hosein spoke about, and then because they can see how machine learning can solve actual problems, as opposed to someone who comes from, let's say, a programming background. I find they have a slightly different take when they come into data science. So absolutely 100% yes. I think social scientists make excellent data scientists.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, Ebony.
So I was just going to add quickly, you know, there are things like behavioral analytics that, you know, having that background of social sciences can be extremely beneficial in those things. Customer experience studies, you know, really delving into what makes, you know, customers respond, what makes great target customers, you know, looking at social media and how those things interact with different problems that you're trying to solve. There's a lot of application of social sciences in there. So definitely don't limit yourself by thinking, you know, I'm not in a heavy math, stats, comp sci space. It's not limited to that. And there's such a plethora of problems that have to be solved that you don't want to limit yourself and think that, you know, you're excluded because you're social science, your background is social sciences. Go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, and yeah, just to support that, I fully agree. So we try to collaborate with all disciplines. I mean, we've written papers with people from economics, engineering, medical sciences, etc. We even had a publication in a journal on music. So social sciences is important, and that's why we want to do more research on problems that has an impact on society, which is one of the reasons we have this collaboration with the Cropper Foundation, which is an NGO, and we have started doing some initial discussions with them on seeing how we could help with their issues they face with societies, or you know, they are working with different social groups, etc. But yeah, I agree. Social science, as Nigel said too, you know, data science applies to anything, basically, anything that has data. We have the tools, but we need people with the problems to come to us, and we collaborate. All right, you know, it's not we going to solve a problem for you. You're going to solve the problem with us, because you know the problem. We don't know the problem, but we need, you know, we need that collaboration. And we've had it in some cases, but in certain areas, we're still lacking.
Thank you very much for those very thorough answers. Moving on to the Q&A, and I understand these questions are a little similar, but I can also understand how important they are to our, you know, to the younger people that are participating here, and you know how valuable your advice is. One question is, what advice would you give to a young professional in Trinidad who is trained in engineering or other quantitative disciplines, but wants to reskill as a data scientist?
Okay, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So as I said, you know, we have people in TTLAB Lab from all sorts of different disciplines. If you come from engineering, you already have most of what is required. You know, you may be lacking a little bit in some of the statistics and mathematics, but you know, I mean, my background is electrical engineering, right? So it's easy to learn what you need to learn to ramp up, and so people from engineering would come to me and say, look, this is my background. What should I do to be able to do data science research? And, you know, I give them some advice in that area. But you know, each of these disciplines that come to us are lacking in some form. So the people from statistics who come in, they are a bit weak in the programming area. People with a computer science background are weak in statistics, etc. What I try to do within TT Lab is have them help each other. So for instance, at TST, in the case of TSTT, where we had 5 interns, 3 of them were from statistics, 1 was from computer science, 1 was from engineering, but they helped each other. You know, they helped each other when it came to programming, etc. So yeah, if you're in engineering, you're fine. It's just a matter of learning, you know, some more statistics, brushing up on your programming skills and mathematics.
Thank you. We have a question now in the chat for Ms. De Leon. What has been your process in establishing your department now? What are the high points and what are the lessons learned?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the greatest asset that we've had is having Professor Hosein. You know, we partner with him and he's helped us to essentially create this internship program where we have students come on board. Well, I shouldn't say students. Some are students and finishing up their master's or PhD programs, and some of them are, you know, they're completed. And so we bring them on board for a 6-month internship. I think it gives the company an opportunity to evaluate them. It gives them an opportunity to figure out, is this something I actually want to be doing? And from the beginning, you're starting on real world problems, real business problems. So it's not like we're giving you, you know, a generic problem to solve. This is real business problems. And I think it's a great opportunity because you can really figure out from that 6 months whether this is something you really want to be in, and you get to sink your teeth into it, and you get to see the very dirty data and all of those things that you have to work through. You really understand from beginning to end what this process entails. But low points, I would say, you know, I think Prof had mentioned this a little while ago, where you have to partner with the business. Even though we work for a company, we're trying to move the company in that direction. And so they don't always understand exactly what we're trying to do. There's a lot of education involved. There's a lot of, you know, hand holding at the same time. And it is a process, as I said. And so even though you're starting and your focus is data science, you'd be surprised you're getting involved in a lot of different things that, you know, stretch you a little bit. But I think that's good for our development, because as we take, you know, a country and a culture that's not very familiar with this, that is what our future leaders are going to have to be able to do. You know, it's a little broader than just saying I'm coming with the technical experience. So, you know, it's been a great partnership with Prof so far. You know, our team has grown, as I said, very fast. I am very happy to see that almost every single one of the interns that we brought on board has decided to stay full-time with us. So that's excellent. And so far, so good. So no complaints really on that front.
Fantastic. Moving on. I mean, we're already slightly over our scheduled time, but as long as you guys are okay with staying a bit longer, I would really love to go through the questions. As I said, we have no time pressure, but I do understand that. Please do let me know if you have other commitments as I go through the questions, because we really are getting a lot of questions. The next one is, any opinions on how do we start encouraging local companies to improve or modernize data architecture to support downstream data needs? Maybe Mr. Henry, we can start with you here, and then we can go to the rest of the panel.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a sense, we have to build it and they would come, kind of thing, right? I mean, maybe at first people might be, just to give an example, people might be kind of hesitant that, you know, your phone is looking at what you're typing, right? But nobody complains about predictive text, right? Because it works. So the thing about it is, I think the way to encourage is to show the value. And once somebody sees the value, they say, how do I do that? Then they go and put in their investment up the road, which is what you're talking about. But if I could, actually, yeah, let me leave it at that. You know, I don't want to take up all the time.
No, please go ahead. Please go ahead. I think we're all fine for time. Nobody's complaining yet, so.
So I think one thing I want to say, And it wasn't directly asked in this question, but it is a little bit under the surface, and it's actually related to the last two questions. Data scientist is a flashy title and so on, but in terms of big data and the professionals that are required to support it, it's beyond the classic data scientist, quote unquote, the unicorn, and we need to pay attention to that. We talk about infrastructure, when you hear infrastructure, we're thinking about hardware and operating systems and so on, but people are very important. And there was a question about how you get involved. I think one thing you need to think about is everybody may not be like a unicorn, as they say, which is the Swiss Army knife of data scientists. I mean, there's so much work to do that you probably want to think about what your passion in this world is, in the world of big data and advanced analytics, and build that. And one thing that we are lacking, to come to the question, is data engineering, which is very important. We can't do without it. I mean, hands-on. And if you don't know what that is, I encourage you to look it up and see if it's for you. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Moving on, the questions keep coming thick, and I would like to thank Professor Hosein also for answering some of them in the chat box. You really are helping me out, otherwise we'll be here until 9 p.m. But the next question for the panel is, what are some of the best approaches to cost effectively capture or generate the local data needed to be able to perform some of these analyses, particularly on public or social problems where there is no natural private sector company to fund the data collection? I don't know, Professor, if you want to take this one first, and then we can give it to the rest of the panel.
Yeah, so collecting data is always difficult, and actually Nigel is probably the better one to answer this when it comes to data collection, surveys, etc. Because with surveys, you have to be careful that it's not biased. And so when it comes to collecting data, you want to use technology because it's the fastest way to do it, but then it becomes biased because the people who do not have the technology are the ones who will not respond. So we have to come up with creative ways to do that, and which is one of the reasons we worked on this approach for surveys. But in that case, the survey was more for ISPs, and the reason for doing it was to identify problems, so root cause analysis could be done to solve problems, etc. But let me actually pass it over to Nigel when it comes to collecting data from society. Yeah.
Right. So thanks. So the question was about the public sector, right? Not necessarily about public.
No,
opinion.
rather public and social problems, right? So something where there's no natural private sector company to deal with it.
Right. Got it. Okay, I got it. So it's as Prof said. I mean, it's difficult, and as what is implied in the question, when there is money to be made, when there's a bottom line and there's a private sector interest, you have the funding in order to do these things. When the benefit is social, it's less obvious to say how you're going to fund this in terms of human resource and infrastructure. I don't think there's an easy answer. I think what we got to do is show the benefit. And when you as a member of the public cry out for X, where is this? Hopefully that may be an impetus to get, whether it's the government or whether it is to get independent funding agencies or even corporate bodies and their corporate social responsibilities programs to fund the analytics, and including advanced analytics to solve social and social problems. But if I could just say one more thing on that, I mean, It's not quite new, and maybe it's new to this region, but the whole concept of social entrepreneurship is important to figure out, what's a way to make solving these social problems sustainable. And I don't have any easy answer for that, but it's something.
Oh, sorry, you muted yourself by accident. Yeah.
I missed the last part. What was that?
I said you muted yourself. I don't know if that was by accident or because you were
yeah. It's my device. Yeah, but thank you.
All right. No problem. Moving on, we have a question for Professor Hosein and Ms. De Leon that's addressed to you, which is, what are your team's involvement in, is there any involvement from your teams in any data governance or data management projects? What is your take on this area? And is someone interested in this field welcome at TT Lab?
Ebony, you go first.
Sure. So if our team's involvement in data governance, so we partner with the data governance team here at Guardian, right? And data management teams. All of these things go hand in hand. There's no way to do these things without having, the involvement of data engineers, like Nigel was saying, data governance, all of that. I mean, data privacy is a very real issue. And since we're using, we're solving problems using customers' data, you have to be very, very conscious of data privacy. And that is where the governance team definitely comes in to make sure that we're approaching things in the right way, anonymizing data as needed, creating the security measures that help to protect our customers' information. So those things are critical. If you're interested in the field, I guess for the TTLAB part, Prof will have to say, not quite sure what is needed there. So Prof, do you want to jump in on that last part?
Yeah, well, of course, we're always interested in doing any kind of research. So in this particular case, data governance is a little bit off our main expertise, but it is important. For instance, recently we were involved in a committee on bias in AI from UNESCO. So UNESCO, had this committee formed to look at bias issues, which we are all familiar with when it comes to AI. So bias, privacy issues. We also need to educate local companies about privacy issues and how to protect their data. Of course, when we work with a company, we sign an NDA, but they sometimes share stuff that they shouldn't be sharing, and we have to be the ones to say, look, no, you don't need to share this with us. Please, remove that column or hash it or something. So I think it's important for a local company, in one case, they go to the extreme and try to block things too much. And then in some cases, they go to the other extreme where they share too much. So we have to guide them as to what should be shared and how they should collect their data, etc. But TT Lab would always be interested in anything you want to discuss in that aspect as well, because it is something important. Whatever is important when it comes to data science, we're interested.
Thank you.
Sorry, and can I just add that we do have a data management and data governance team, within Guardian. And so if there's an interest and you'd like me to connect you to someone from that team so you could have a greater discussion, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So not to abuse your patience and generosity with your time, I'm just going to go do two more questions and then we will end because we're already 15 minutes over the limit. The next question is, with increased data usage in Tobago, do you see any limitations with the infrastructure when it comes to bandwidth and fiber routes coming into the island of Tobago? I'm not sure who to really address this to. Anybody who wants to jump in is welcome. But that is the penultimate question of the day.
Yeah, actually, so my original area of interest was communications. And so, the whole fiber infrastructure from, international links, etc., is an important issue. I do not know of the details of what communication infrastructure there is between Trinidad and Tobago, but what we need to do is ensure that if we do get isolated, and this is important, if we become isolated from the internet, and so we did some research in that area. So if Trinidad and Tobago becomes isolated from the internet, although we have an IXP, which would route between the different ISPs, like Flow and TSTT, etc., that is insufficient to continue operating you won't be able to access websites, because even if the website is local, because the DNS infrastructure will not work anymore. And so we came up with a solution to that problem by doing some caching, etc. But it is important to analyze not only the hardware infrastructure, but the internet infrastructure, to ensure that if there is isolation, whether between Trinidad and Tobago and the Miami Network Access Point, NAP, or between Trinidad and Tobago itself, there should be put in place mechanisms to allow people to still access websites, especially during emergencies, hurricanes, etc., because you want them at that point in time to access the resources they would need.
Great, thank you very, very much. Moving on to the final question of the day, and actually it's a very nice question for the end of the whole forum. Actually, which online resources or platforms are the best, in your opinion, with regards to acquiring the necessary knowledge in data analytics? I think this is for all three of you. It's just a question of who wants to go first.
I can kick things off. For me, I would say Kaggle, which is Kaggle. I found when I was, going through my studies and even to today, it's one of the websites that really does provide a lot of information. There are courses on there that you can kind of get started from a very beginner level to understand what analytics, machine learning, data science is all about. And it can take you pretty far through. They also have a lot of data sets that you can access. I mean, they're a lot cleaner than you would find in in a work environment, but that's okay. It gets you into the habit of being able to understand how to, use the data, clean the data, prep it, that kind of stuff, to really be able to understand how to provide solutions. And there are competitions on there, and some of them are paid. If you're at that level where you can actually create a solution that is worthwhile and usable, they will actually compensate you for it. So a lot of great things on that website, and I find it to be a really useful tool.
So if I could jump in, so I'm going to give you three options. Number one, Kaggle. Number two, Kaggle, and number three, Kaggle. Listen, I'm not gonna repeat what Ebony said, but I think if you jump on there and you're really interested in what people are doing, then perhaps advanced analytics and machine learning and optimization, linear optimization is your thing. But if it isn't, if you say, what is this? Maybe it's not the area for you. So I'll leave it at that.
So yeah, in terms of resources, yeah, Kaggle, of course, and of course there are tons of courses online. For the MSc in data science program, sometimes people come to me and ask, well, what do I need in order to get into the program? And so we have a site, ai.lab.tt. If you go to it, there's a course there that kind of gives you an evaluation of your background and tells you if you have sufficient expertise in the different areas, programming, etc., to be able to do the MSc in data science. If not, it will, the site also has some courses you can take to get up to speed with what you would require. So you may need to beef up on your Python programming, or you may need to beef up on statistics or linear algebra, or whatever it is. We provide links to courses, not our courses, Coursera courses and other courses to help you get to the level that we could accept you into the program.
Thank you very much, Professor Hosein. Thank you much, the panel as well, Mr. Henry and Ms. De Leon. We are now at the end of this session. We are at the end of the Big Data Forum. Thank you for staying more than 20 minutes extra. It is really appreciated, and I think the participants also appreciated that. I think we've had over 20 questions just from the participants today, which is great for a very engaging debate. Thank you so much for your time. Just to close the forum, I would like to thank all the speakers and participants over these last 2 days. Minister Young, Minister Imbert, really kicked off both days, really set the tone for everything. And especially, since you're here, I'd like to thank Professor Hosein for his guidance to me and the team here at the United Nations in putting this together. It's been several months now since we first spoke about this, and it is great to see the fruits of this collaboration really come to the fore. We have had, I believe we don't have the final numbers yet, but I think well over 1,000 unique participants over these 2 days. And what we have seen from everybody, from the government, from the academia, from the private sector, from the wider public, it is a very, very strong commitment and belief that the Trinidad and Tobago should drive towards a smarter future using data and technology. And we at the United Nations would like to play our part in that, no matter how small, through events such as this and through other collaborations, including working on establishing a big data center of excellence in Trinidad and Tobago for the wider region as we move forward. Thank you all for coming. Please stay tuned to our website, bigdataforumtt.com, where we will be posting everything about this event and also some sort of next steps. We are very, very keen to hold this event in person finally this year after 2 years of virtual holding. We already secured funding for next year and the year after, 2022, 2023. Big Data Forum is definitely happening. We hope to have a chance to see you all in person and to move things along. Thank you once again for your time today and for your time over the last 2 days. With this, we end the 2021 Big Data Forum. Thank you all for participating and have a lovely rest of the week. All the best.
Thank you.